All right, number 3, a disciple must love Jesus most. And this is going to be from Luke 14, 25 through 33. I'm just going to pull out the 3 times where he says this phrase and kind of put this in one chunk. Large crowds were gathering with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple." That's a tough one. "And everyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. In the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple." This is one of the toughest passages in Scripture. Let's talk about this first one for a minute. Large crowds were traveling with him. He says, you must hate your father and mother and your family, even your own life, or you cannot be my disciple. What is Jesus really saying here, right? These are the most precious and important relationships that one can have. And Jesus knows that. He's bringing up intentionally a contrast. It can't be literal hate he means here, right? He just said, love one another as I love you. Love one another with sacrificial, gracious, selfless love. But by comparison, a disciple's love for Christ must be so great that it makes your love for your family and your own life maybe look like hate. I mean, that's so great. You're supposed to love these people so well and love Jesus even more that the contrast is extreme. Disciples are to love Jesus first and most. If he's truly our master, then our love for him will have no rival. What competes in my heart for first and most? For a disciple of Christ, it must be displaced by something greater. Then he goes on to say, anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. And so he expounds upon this call for total loyalty. He says disciples must carry their cross. Everyone knew that a cross was a Roman instrument of death. This was a call to die to yourself, to lay down your plans, your ambitions, let go of what you insist on. You may have heard this term lordship or a lordship decision if you've been around the church. These are the times in life when Jesus asks you to give something up because it's not best for you to hold on to. And you oftentimes don't understand every reason why. These lordship moments. I've always wanted to be the kind of disciple that says, here I am, Lord, send me. Like anything you say, I'll go anywhere, I'll do anything, I'll say anything. And I read that in the scriptures, my heart says, yes, I want to be able to say that. I tend to focus more on what I will lose if I follow Jesus in this thing he's asking me to give up. More often than not, my hands are clenched tight, and my experience with following Jesus is him sort of lovingly prying open my fingers. And it's sort of like, are you serious, Lord? You want me to do that? Like, can't I do both, Lord? Oh, no, no? Okay, yeah, you're probably right. This is going to be hard, Lord. Will you help me? All right, God, you can have it, This is essentially my testimony of why I went into full-time ministry. I wanted to be a businessman with my dad. My dad and I have a great relationship. We always talked about me taking over as a kid. Wouldn't it be fun if you took over the business one day, Dave? And we would talk about these things, and I just wanted to be with Dad. I didn't know anything about business. I wanted to play golf like he did too. That would have been fun, But when I was in high school, God said, Dave, I have a different plan for you. He said, I want you to be a preacher. Freaked me out. I was like, where did that come from? Like, what? This was not on my radar at all. Like, and what about this plan I already had, It felt like nothing would cost more than to give up the plan that I had for my life. So I said, no, Lord, I'll do anything else but that. And that doesn't really work if you want to be his disciple. It was actually this word from Luke. I was at a youth conference, and it hit me between the eyes. I was cut to the heart, and I eventually submitted. If you've ever run from God, it can be it makes you weary. And eventually you're just like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it anymore. God, I'll do it. And on the other side of that decision now, I see nothing but his grace and his blessing. Before, it felt so hard and so weighty. I couldn't see it before, right? But now I feel I was made for this and that God is all over this. Will you and I listen to the voice of God, take up our cross, obey him no matter what? This is what Christ did for us. And if we're going to be following him as a disciple, we will follow him into that. We'll do the same. And the last part of this little section, in the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. Gosh, it's like the kind of the catch-all at the end. If you've given up this, given up that, now just give up everything else. A disciple must continually unentrap himself from the trappings of this world. They must have a biblical perspective on stuff. We're always a steward. We're never an owner. And if you choose to make Jesus the Lord of the life, you're saying on the front end that you have already said yes to whatever he is asking of you. And the Christian life's a lot of little uh-huhs along the way to anything else he asks you to do. You're writing a blank check and you're sliding it across the table and telling him there's no cost that you will not pay because of what he did for you. He saved you from separation from God forever. There's no cost that I will not pay for you, that I will not, give up for you. In many cases, following Jesus in this way, it will sound foolish to the world. You won't be able to explain it to your friends and family very well. But you're convinced that Jesus says to do it, and so you do it. And it's this ruinous, glorious journey of following Jesus and being his disciple. It's a journey, right? He did it too. The night he was betrayed, right? He's in the garden, he's praying, he's about to go to the cross, and he says, Father, if there's any other way, please do it. But not my will, but yours be done. And there was no other way. There was no exception this time for Jesus. And so in summary from this passage in Luke 14, a disciple must love Jesus the most, more than your closest relationships, more than your greatest ambition, more than your most prized possessions. Jesus is greater than all of them. And it's actually a freedom to lay him down and to take up Christ.